Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and I know you are doing super fantastic as always, as as I am too. And I'm going to tell you something that you already know. Okay, but I have a point. Okay, I do. So, anyway, multicellular organisms, which I would assume this has to apply to single cell organisms as well. So let's just say organisms. How about that? Anyway, organisms, cells, almost nearly all of them have the complete DNA in each one to make the entire organism. In other words, let's say I don't know how many cells there are in a human body. I probably could have Googled it and I didn't. So let's just go with a trillion, whatever. So a trillion cells in your body, and every single one of them, or nearly every single one of them, contains their DNA to rebuild your entire physical body. That's amazing. It is. Now, the point that I had about that, because that is something that most people know, is that illustrates from another perspective the what would be holography, the holographic model. Okay, and I do have a point. I'm not just going full blown nerd on you here. I promise. Well, most people when they hear the word hologram, they think of the neat little stickers and all of that, and that is a hologram, yes. And then they also think of the 3D images, such as Princess Leia in Star Wars talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi. That is, yes, that is also a hologram. They use lasers and lenses and things like that to make them. We can do that now. I have been able to do that for a long time. Anyway, but a hologram, like by definition, Itzhak Bentov, and I know I use Itzhak Bentov a lot, but his work was very admirable. It's very interesting. Very hard to follow for people who are like me, who are spiritual and not sciencey. However, it's very pertinent. How about that? It's very pertinent. So, anyway, his illustration of a hologram would be like if you were to take 3 pebbles, okay, or a billion pebbles, it doesn't matter, and drop them in a bucket of water, and then each one of them causes a ripple. And then the ripples from this one and the ripples from that one all intersect, causing what's called an interference pattern, also known as a hologram. Now, if that water you had flash frozen in a second, where all of those ripples that are interacting and causing an interference pattern, all of them are frozen in place, and then you took that out and you shined a light through it, you could then, well, a certain type of light, but anyway, go with me. But because I'm not sciencey, right? So you shined a light through it, you could then pinpoint, even though it just looks like a big mess of ripples at this point, you could pinpoint precisely where each one of those pebbles was dropped in. That applies even if you were to drop a billion pebbles in, and there's just one huge just splash. That is still an interference pattern. And if you were to flash freeze that, you could still pinpoint where each one of those pebbles was dropped in at. Now that's very interesting. But wait, it gets even better. If you were to take that big chunk of ice and break it into a million pieces, any one of those pieces, no matter how small it may be, you could still shine a light through it and pinpoint where every one of the billion pebbles is, even though you've only got a tiny little piece of the big chunk of ice now that you're working with. That is fascinating. It's almost unbelievable, but it is true. Okay? So that's why I said it's the whole DNA thing is similar to that. In that you can take any one little piece, any cell or little piece of the ice, and reconstruct the entire thing from that. So when we say that the universe is holographic in nature, that's kind of what it means. Now, what does that mean to us? Well, I'm going to read a little bit out of, speaking of Itzhak Bentov, Itzhak Bentov's book, A Brief Tour of Higher Consciousness. Itzhak Bentov. Okay, so page 15 and 16. The universe is a hologram or interference pattern in which all parts are interconnected, containing information about each other and thus about the entire universe. As galaxies move along the surface of the torus, they radiate information waves about themselves. These waves interweave into an interference pattern and form a hologram, which fills the hollow space inside the torus as well as extends into the surrounding void. Now, where are you going with this, Matt? Well, I'm going with, my point is everything is interconnected. And it goes on to say that this hologram of information could then be called the universal mind, because it contains all the information there is about the entire structure. Each individual human consciousness, this is you, each individual human consciousness is part of that hologram. Therefore, by projecting one's consciousness into the universal mind in a heightened state of awareness, one can obtain knowledge about the whole universe. I'll say that one more time because that is very, you got to get that. It says, each individual human consciousness is part of the hologram. Therefore, by projecting one's consciousness into the universal mind in a heightened state of awareness, one can obtain knowledge about the whole universe. It also follows that the thoughts of all human beings are interconnected, affecting each other and in turn affecting the entire universe. Whatever one thinks or does becomes part of the universal hologram. The implications of this are obvious and far-reaching. Now, my point is, nothing is separate. Everything is interconnected in that, oh gosh, what was the word? in that interference pattern. Every time you have a thought, your physical brain emanates a very subtle, yes, but it still emanates it still emits, every time you have a thought, your physical brain emits a vibration. Every time I have a thought, same thing. Every time you or I do anything. Now, your vibrations and my vibrations will then interconnect. Much like the pebbles dropped in the water, the ripples will interconnect, forming an interference pattern. And all of that becomes part of the entire universe. So, your thoughts are forming the universe, just like the vibration coming from the entire galaxy Andromeda is forming the entire universe. Now, that may be a little less subtle, yes. Nonetheless, when you have a thought, when you do anything, it vibrates and it causes effects. It affects the hologram. So everything is interconnected, meaning you can take any one little tiny little piece, any tiny little sliver of that entire hologram and put the laser through it, the light, and pinpoint where every one of those emissions came from. That is fascinating. And that is what is meant when we talk about the holographic nature of the universe. And I did forget, oops, here we are. Please hit the like button on this video, if you would. I would really appreciate it. And also subscribe if you have not done so yet. Thank you. So anyway, but and this is where I'm going to go with the woo-woo. Well, not really woo-woo. Anyway, but humanity have been programmed to believe that we are very small and insignificant. It's as if we are on a little island, just off on our own, and we have no effect on anything, and we are so far out of touch from everything that we're really just very small, insignificant, and nothing. That is not true. yes, we are small, and yes, our planet is small, and we are in a small solar system, in a average sized galaxy, and a gigantic universe. Right. That doesn't mean that you're small and insignificant. You're just as significant as anything. Your thoughts form the universe. Your thoughts are causing the universe to be there. Is it very subtle? Yes. But nonetheless, all of those, every time you emit a vibration, it adds to the interference pattern, the holographic nature of it. But we've been programmed or brainwashed into believing that we are not that. We're just small, insignificant, just everything's so far away, everything's so big. Every time and space and distance are just enormous, and those are the things that we're taught. Those are the things that we're programmed to believe. And it's like, well, why? Well, I'm going to maybe touch on a little Hermeticism in this point, where we, like in the Kybalion, it says that, with the principle of polarity, the pendulum swings back and forth. It goes from one pole to the other pole. And he also talks about swinging the pendulum in that part of the Brief Tour of Higher Consciousness too, but in a different respect. But anyway, in order for there to be cold, there must be hot, right? In order for there to be good, there must be evil. So that's where I'm going. And some people, and it's been speculated that there are souls in the universe that admire us for taking on the challenge of coming here and having experience here, because there are so many pitfalls. There's so much that can happen here. We're admired because it's like, wow, you could really go there and get stuck in a trap. You could go get stuck in a feedback loop, like a Groundhog Day. Every day is exactly the same, right? But and that's why they say that there are souls in the universe who look at us who have incarnated here and say, wow, whoa, you guys, man, brave. And so we're admired from that regard, and I don't know if I believe that's true, but it is a really cool thought. I mean, there is that, right? So it's like, now that we've established that there is evil exists, yes. And the evil in this world, I've said it many times, they stand to gain if we are dumb, if we are kept down, if we do not understand how much of an effect we have on things, if we don't understand, if we keep thinking we're small and insignificant, so that we will continue to produce, consume, and obey, as I've said, and then make more people who produce, consume, and obey before we die, and so therefore keep going, keep the thing going. But, dear loved one, we are now aware of all this, right? Because of just the things I just said over the last, 10, 12 minutes. Because of all of that, we are now aware of all of this. We're aware of the fact that of the hologram. We're aware of all of it. We're aware of the fact that we do, with our thoughts even, create the universe. I just told you in a scientific way how you are a co-creator. That's why I read some of the books that I read. Even though I am a spiritual guy, it's nice to be able to point to some science and say, oh, you want me to show you how I know this? Well, okay. My first reaction is, well, I just know, because I do. But if you want me to back it up with some science, here you go. Holographic model. Right? So, but now that we understand all of these things, we understand that there is evil that does want to keep us down, that doesn't want us to understand all of these things. Because once we understand that, we understand how powerful we are. and that we can create our own reality. We can break free from the feedback loops. We can have amazing lives. We can make this experience that we're in something beautiful. So, just by having this awareness, by being aware of the fact of all of this, we're miles and miles, hundreds and thousands of miles ahead of the game in most cases. So we have to begin to consciously, purposely, and quietly make changes. Because if nothing changes, then nothing changes. We have to start controlling our thoughts, because we understand that every thought we have it's a very subtle vibration, but it does create a vibration. Everything we emit. And now, knowing that, you may now understand, if you didn't before, understand the real importance of being aware of your thoughts, being aware of what you're putting out there into the field. Because you're going to put that out there as a creation. Well, now that you know that, you can now change that, right? And that's amazing. The only thing we regret is, I wish I'd known this sooner, that kind of thing, right? But we have to make those changes, because if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So if we get aware of our thoughts, like with the awareness alarms, or when we stop and think about the things we've been thinking about, or the things we've been consuming as far as media is concerned, it's like, is this really helping me, or is this going to keep me stuck in that feedback loop of negativity? Right? And affirmations are great, but the changes that we make, like what I mean, affirmations are great. Affirmations are great in that it helps to program our subconscious minds to begin creating better things in our lives. But the best thing that we can do is become aware of our thoughts and make changes in our thoughts. So, anyway, loved ones, that's what I got for now. And yes, I am kind of have steps that I'm going with this. I'm not saying that this is necessarily a series of videos where I'm going to be talking about these things. Well, I am going to continue to talk about these things, and I do have a lot more to go with this. But with this one, I really wanted to just demonstrate to you scientifically how the things that we say about spirituality, you can prove it with that. And that's pretty awesome. Now, if you happen to want to rush out and buy this book, and I do recommend it. However, dear loved one, if you're going to read this book, you really, really, really got to read this book first. And it's Akhmetov, Stalking the Wild Pendulum. And then you can read the follow-up. It's Akhmetov, A Brief Tour of Higher Consciousness. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm warning you, these are very difficult books to read if you're not really into science and physics and math and all that good stuff, which I am absolutely not. I mean, it is interesting, yes, but I don't want to say it's hard to follow, but it took me a long time to read it and really, well, I can't even say I've fully grasped it all yet, but anywho, there's that. So if you're going to read one, if you're going to read this, you got to read this first, really. You do. And that was the only two books he made. He had a very untimely death. Itzhak Bentov actually worked for the CIA, I believe it was, and which is another whole conspiracy theory thing if you want to. His death was very suspect. Let's put it that way. He died in a plane crash, but anyway. And it wasn't long after his work with the CIA had completed. So, once they're done with you, I guess. Anyway, loved ones, yes, again, please give me the thumbs up. Share this video with someone, please. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you have not yet subscribed, I do not know what you are waiting for. I would really appreciate it if you would go ahead and do so. And I am still wanting to do that video on the void meditation. Although I think that would be very cool if we could do that in a live stream. Let me know in the comments if you would be open to doing that. That would be very cool. Otherwise, well, even if I do it in a live stream and nobody shows up, that's fine. I mean, it'll still be on YouTube. But anyway, I want to do a guided meditation where we project our consciousness into the void, and you will. I just want you to see how much of a peaceful place that is. But then you also realize, wow, this is where creation happens, right before it happens, right? That's where God creates from. So, anywho, that's what I got, loved ones. I do love you. I do. And I will be back directly.